Hey everybody, it's Grant, and today's video is going to be an in-depth look on my real estate portfolio, how I got started in real estate, and also we're going to be inspiring some kids. Hopefully, my real estate journey will spark their interest in real estate. I know you guys all have one as well. Let's get into it. This part, so I started doing real estate when does anybody ever like rentals, think about things like that? Like what are you guys interested in, right? Help me out with this. So tell me something that you want to do later on in life, or something you're doing now, or what? Somebody give me one thing, two things. Say it louder. Sales. So understand, selling, you're gonna have some confidence. You're gonna have a lot of training. You're gonna have some things. My overall real estate portfolio. Now, I started doing this when I was 18 years old. So give you some. I was probably in one of your classes. Yeah, I was a problem for him. And then now you invite me to come speak. I appreciate that. What a 180. When it comes to this, when I was 18 years old, my mother comes in my room. I was watching a movie, and she was like, "Hey, no girls in your room." It's okay. I was making $75,000 a year selling cars. And so long story short, I bought my first apartment, paid $96,000 for it. Of course, I didn't write a check. There's no cool story there. I get my last name, but it's not really how things worked. I was paid $7.50 an hour or commission. And that's, I've grown up underneath a very difficult man who when he died when I was 26, really, of course it destroyed me, but at the same time, I could still function. I could still run these companies. I could still do these things because how his teachings were, right? And so after that, when I was 19, the person that sold me the half of a duplex, right? I just had my little apartment, paid like $550 a month for it. I could afford it, and I was comfortable. Well, that word comfortable also could make you happy, but it also could make you a little too happy, a little too fat, just sitting there enjoying yourself and not really pushing yourself. He comes to me and he says, "Hey, why don't you buy the next door apartment for 80?" And I said, "Well, I appreciate the deal, but that's 16, and back then 16,000 was like my net worth, right? It was what I had." And so I'm 18 years old, got a little money saved in the bank, and I'm like, I'm gonna think about this. I said, "Give me a week." So anybody ever offers you something, handshakes still work and matter to this day, but maybe do a little handshake deal. Say, "Hey, give me a week to think about it. If I could only have exclusive rights to this deal for a week." They say no, but at least try that. Gives you some time to think about it, make sure you can afford it, get some partners in with it, whatever you want to do, okay? So I said, "Give me a week." So I go to the person, because I knew him, I go to the person that actually built the apartments, get a quote, and I find out I can build me one for about $170,000, then put some stuff in there I didn't need and make it a little bit more expensive, right? That's what we always do. Ain't that right, Brett? The latest project. So anyway, as this goes, I end up building my first duplex at 19, living in one side, renting the other side, and eliminating my mortgages, my housing expenses, things like that, because I had a tenant paying for it. And basically, the reason I tell you this, it taught me that, ooh, I like this real estate stuff. And I like living for free and having a little bit more flexible income because of it. So now my property value is worth about 20 million bucks. I did not pay this for it. The money is made on the purchase. A lot of people are like, "Man, my rental property is paying for itself. I love this, that, blah, 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 blah." But understand that if you have a duplex and when they're both rented, it's paying for itself. I'm giving you some knowledge here that when you get into this later, you don't get into this. I'm not buying your property at a discount because you can't afford it, right? There's a lot of people that do this. If I'm going to have to put two renters in there and then the house is being paid for, that's kind of stressful. I want to make a little profit, and I'm going to teach you how this works. Delayed gratification kicks in with this. Goal setting kicks in with this, but I need to have 20% down. 20% down is what I call recession proof. So when the market happens, your job pays you 30% less or you lose it. You have a way better chance of making that property cash flow versus becoming a really big liability, right? The difference between an asset and a liability, I'm sure you guys know, right? This is college, but one that puts money in your pocket, one that takes it out. Dr. Rhodes, a cool story. He was a vet for big animals, right? At 45 years old, he retires, and that first year he retired, he started buying land. So after retiring from his fancy job, he bought some land, sold it, and that year, after flipping it more and more and more, he made 2 million bucks. Made more money in that 1 year that he had made and saved all those other years, right? So this is just something to give you just another career path thought process. So when you get your job, and you're getting a job as a school teacher, an engineer, or whatever you're doing, right? Start saving this money for this principle. It might seem like these slides are about me, but the only way I can teach you is by showing you what I've done, and hopefully you can pick up some things and kind of go. One of the things that I've always wished is I'd have more people tell me their life story. And I don't need it for a long time, but for 45 minutes, give me some things that you might have done that might maybe be able to give me a little stepping stone to go a little faster. So understand, let me show you how I developed my plan of life. I'm a collective. My brother Ryan, Very successful, love the guy to death, just had his 50th birthday. He ended up getting stressed out and he sold them. And my father gave everything to business. He donated, he did whatever he could. He made sure that he dominated the competition. One thing that I noticed, and I would, if I had more time, I could show this to you on y'all's calculator, it's very simple. But let's talk about real estate. My father was terrified of it. I sat in his office when I was like, hey, I'm thinking about building a duplex. And he was like, you're an idiot. I was like, okay, well, I had an idea. I'm an idiot. Elaborate. Let's go, right? Because whatever your father or your mom tells you, or whoever somebody's close to you, your aunt, uncle, whoever your mentor is, you're gonna listen, right? So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay. And he just says, well, I tried that stuff once, and I'm just saying, be careful. I'm not saying don't do it. Okay, it's less of an I'm an idiot. There was a little bit more versus just if I'm an idiot, I never do it, and then this never happens. And so as I'm sitting there, I go and I build this apartment. Mistakes after mistakes, issues after issues. I'm 19 years old. I don't know what the frick I'm doing. I got a builder, making sure I'm not getting taken advantage of, doing whatever I can to just make this the best possible thing for me at the time. When I get done, 6 months later, he's like, hey, how's that duplex thing going? I was like, pretty cool. I'm living on one side. I got a renter. My note's freaking $799. The dude pays me $850. Yeah, my note, my insurance, everything. Now this man, I assume, just knew everything. When I found out that even your mentors have had problems that they have let stick on them a little bit. He did some houses in Welsh way back when in the 80s. Couldn't get anybody to pay him, says this ain't for me. There we go, right? So here's the thing. He just had a bad experience. So the reason I tell you this is back in 1990, this man could have probably gathered $1 million, right? Let's just say that. And back in 1990, Nelson Road, right? We all familiar with Nelson? It's expensive, right? Well, think about that when you talk about Nelson Road is as expensive as Houston, Texas real estate. Really is. It's where you want to be. Back then, it was selling for $15,000 to $25,000 an acre. 1 million bucks, 15,000 bucks equals 66 acres. And $1 million investment. All these years later, 30 years later, $66 million. $1 million investment could have turned into something really, really, really crazy. Now you understand that's a big number, but we could buy 1 acre. I'd still be happy with 1 acre from the 1990s, right? So just understand that now as a collective, I buy and build a home every 2 years. I'm in this one for 3 because I'm building a house I'm gonna stay in for 10 years because I just wanted a pool. So I won't put a pool at a property because it doesn't add any value. It adds you a lot of convenience, makes the property sell faster, but it doesn't give you any actual equity on the appraisal. This is how it works, and it works out great. So watch this. All right, so how I started, 16 years old, I was selling Advocare. I don't know if you ever heard about it. I'm still hooked on the stuff to this day. Maybe don't drink it because it's good. It's Spark. I was making $60,000 a year there. Started selling cars in 2008. I'm old, sorry. I'm making $750 an hour or commission, whichever is greater. Not like that old, right? And then bought my first apartment, just explained that to you. Had 10,000 bucks when I sold it. And then boom, in 2009, I was 19 years old, built my first duplex, put 30% down, boom, note was 766 bucks or 776 bucks. Rented one side, and just explained all that to you. Sold cars for 4.5 years, making $75,000, and my biggest money I'd ever saved back then was like 25,000 bucks a year because I didn't have a lot of bills, right? So it was good to be able to save it. Middle of my career, let's see here, became a finance manager. This was cool. So 22, I built my first house. I was pressured into this, didn't mind, but I liked living in my apartment. Now understand, I was a manager at this time making over $350,000 a year. I'm really good at what I do, really good at people. I enjoy people. I also enjoy teaching. What ended up happening is this was kind of cool. This was house hacking at its finest. So I put 25% down when I did my home. Ended up having a mortgage of $649 after insurance and taxes, which is expensive, $250 a month. My note was $899. Now at this time, I was renting apartments for $1,050. So I was living in my home. When I moved out of my duplex, the duplex renter paid for my home. From 23 to 24, when I went through my divorce, I started drinking, partying, and I'm not saying don't do this, but life's about balance. Life's a thing of moderation. So understand, by the time I was 25, I started to right these wrongs. In the middle of this, though, I bought a '69 Camaro. I really like that car, by the way. I just enjoy it. I've had a few. Speedboat, this, blah, blah, blah. And my bank account at the end of that year was like 250,000 bucks, but I started using that money that I had saved, and I thought this was the coolest thing. I was 24 years old. I walk into Chase, and the little lady just gave me a great compliment. She was like, "This is crazy." I was like, "Oh, thanks." But I saved. I did. I was kind of just doing what I was supposed to. I was relentless, and then I thought I had more time. This part's kind of personal, but I thought I had more time Raise your hand if we think that. We're young, right? I mean, y'all are young. I'm not getting less young. So understand, here's the sad part. At 25 years old, I decided to change this. I decided to go back to normal. My first year as being a sales manager, I took 5th place. It kind of sucked, but you had to build a team from absolute scratch. By 26 years old, my team had grown to 3rd, which we were kicking butt. I've made 19 managers in my career, 5 of which make over $200,000 a year to this day. So when I tell you these things like, man, this guy sounds like an idiot, I mean, I've helped a lot of people get to where they're at, and you know, it's just a good feeling. Here's the regret though. Like I got more time. I'm 24 years old. I'm 25 years old. I'm 26 years old. And at 26, my father lost his 2nd battle with cancer. And I'll tell you, I really, really regret being I can't keep cussing in here. Is that okay, kind of? No? Sorry. Anyway. So I really regret being a butthead for those 2 years, right? Where would I have been today if I wouldn't have done some other things and started skipping on my morals and kind of saying, well, I have more time? That word, it's kind of dangerous. And I'll tell you this, how many friends do you have that are not as successful as you that still say, man, I wish I would have. But back then they're saying I have more time, and when we get a little older, we wish we would have, right? This is a very, very great thing because you don't have to start wishing you would have at 24. And I'm glad it happened. Oh, I'm not glad it happened, but it did teach me something that I'm going to stick with forever. Long story short, this is just an example of how this worked. So my first duplex, my tenant, my first house, and then at the time, ended up totaling rents of $1,700. Then we raised it to $1,050 after that. And then I took that money and I turned it into my first complex, right? My first apartment complex. So I have a bunch of these across town. That's all I was going to show you real quick. And then I also had land for 2 more, which was neat, so it could actually grow and to do more. Real estate's a building effect. And so every time I get a little bit of money, I just put it into another property. But I have to find the deal. Don't just buy something to buy it. So here's some statistics on this. So building or buying a home, you can actually sell a home and get it tax-free when you get the income. You're allowed to do this when you're single, up to $250,000 worth of profit. Not $250,000 worth of house, $250,000 worth of profit. When you're married, you can do this up to $500,000. Profit, tax-free. 2 years, yeah, you have up to 7 years to sell it. That's a CPA question. Don't ask me. I'm not always going to say I'm 100% right on these things, but yeah. Example, if you make $100,000 worth of profit, you live in the house for over 2 years, then the money is yours tax-free. But when you think about this the right way, now you don't get the extra 30 grand, right? But if you're making a house of a profit of 100 grand, you live in it for 2 years, you have a income tax rate of 30%, that's 30 grand. So now you just basically made 130, right? Don't go try and spend the 30, but it's a good feeling and understanding how this works. This one here is just to teach you that there's consequences with things. I built my first apartment complex at 26. Long story short with this, the contractor used my money to pay for other jobs. Committed contractor fraud, cost me 2 years of my life fighting with this guy to get my project built and my money back, right? Had liens on it, all kinds of other things. Choose your builder well, because they all have money problems. If you ever become a builder, because I know a lot of people from McNeese do that, just be very careful with that. Don't say, man, I need to go buy me a new Tahoe because I just got this draft for $200,000. The draft needs to go to be building the property, right? You buy the Tahoe with the profit. Long story short, I made him pay me back my money. I had to pay $20,000 at the end of the job just to get him to put the lights on. I ended up buying that whole property, built 5 units for $470 because I ended up making him give me quite a bit of money. And after all that happened, this is just an example of like some single family homes. I was given this house with a property I bought, but it was still nice. I pressure washed it, made it look really nice. This property came with that same house. That's what it looked like. And then I remodeled it to this, and it went from being nearly a tear down to that house is probably worth $145,000 now. And I wasn't given it, but I bought a property, and the guy was like, "Look, I'm not going to move these 2 pier houses. Just take them." Sure, right? And it ended up working out. And then this is just an example of Louisiana. If you've ever driven by this, it's right by the college. I own that one. And then this, last thing I'll tell you, and I'll leave you guys on this. Sometimes real estate comes in different forms. I bought this property, my original 4 units. This is just Snapchat photos. I made this slide last night. But my original 4, I bought 4-plex with the land to build 16 more. You know, when someone else decides to bite off more than you can chew, you might be able to make a bigger deal out of this. So long story short with this, I did this. These last 21 units, these last 16 units in the back, took forever to build, but it worked out, came out nice. And then now there was a 4-plex that was on the other side that it didn't own, and they're now selling them to me at discounted prices just because I'm the guy that owns the rest of it. So I bought this one. We're signing the deal today. Bought this one, which will make 22 units there. It's worth 166. He wanted like 125. We negotiated for a month. got it down to 110, and then there were some repairs that needed to be made, so we got it down to 107. So just to show you, the money's made on the purchase, not on paying it off. Hopefully this stuff kind of helps with you. And then this one's pretty good right here. If you think trying is risky, then wait till they hand you the bill for not trying. This is Jim Rohn. He's a great motivational older speaker, but his stuff still reigns true from today. There we go. Good job, right? Thank you guys for listening.
With all your rental stuff, how is interest rates and stuff affecting you?
So I will tell you this. I'm a big fan of not timing the market, not trying to buy things when things happen. Refis are very expensive, but they're also necessary sometimes. The last 3 I bought, I'm paying like 6%. Tell you the house I'm remodeling, I'm paying 2.75. I really wish I could still be at 2.75, but you kind of have to go with the times in the market. The issue with that would be overpaying and paying the high interest rate. But as soon as rates go down 5%, don't worry about it. But if rates go back down to 3, you bet I'm going to be refinancing and just eating the $2,500 or the $3,000 or the $5,000. Now understand the reason these numbers change. You have 2 years for an appraisal. An appraisal is going to be anywhere from $600 to $1,200. So these costs add up, but you're going to have your court costs and all the other things that are going to happen to do a refi and a bank fee. So it could be as cheap as $3 grand, could be as expensive as 5 with all the other fees. So you just have to weigh those things when it comes to like, all right, I can save 3%. Guess what 3% is, folks? That's like $600 on a big mortgage and $250 on a small mortgage. And one last thing I'll give you on a real estate tip just on this. If you build or buy less than 4 units, which is 4 connecting doors, you can actually do a 30-year mortgage. If you buy 5 or more, it's becoming a commercial loan. Positive thing on a 4 or less, 30-year mortgage, less stress, easier way to get financed. 5 or more commercial rates. That 30 year is not fixed. That 30 year is fixed. On that other ones, you're going to get like a 15 or a 10 year. You're going to have to put more money down, and you're also going to have a 5-year rate that'll adjust. So, like for instance, everything that I have in commercial is good for like another 2 to 5 years. If rates stay higher, my portfolio suffers drastically if I have to now pay the new rates, and it's not a credit thing. That is a thing that just happens in commercial lending. All right, see y'all later.